Today we will be learning Emet Hashem Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, but we have to finish off from Daf Lamed Amud Beis at the end. So we have in the Mishnah that the Mishnah says you can make an Eruv for the Kohen in the Beis HaKvaros, in a Beis HaPras, which we did yesterday, and the reason being because there is an ability for the Kohen to actually go into the Beis HaPras by blowing the Beis HaPras and checking if there's no small bones in the Beis HaPras. Rabbi Yehuda goes further than that. I just want to say before we go any further that the problem with the Beis HaPras, the problem with the Beis HaPras, if the Kohen would not be able to blow his way through to check that by that method, the problem would be that the Kohen cannot enter the place where the Eruv is. So there are two dinim. That's how Rashi explains it on the Mishnah, and similarly in Tosfos. There are two dinim. There is one din that about the food has to be able to be eaten, or potentially be able to be eaten, or be able to be eaten to somebody. Different opinions in that. That's concerning the food itself, but the eating of the food. But the access to the food, so then you cannot have the Eruv in a place where it's inaccessible. So that's the explanation in Rashi and in Tosfos on the Mishnah. And so therefore, we must find some way how to make it accessible. As if a Beis HaPras is fine, because since you're able to blow your way through the Beis HaPras and the Kohen is able to enter it, so therefore it is accessible for the Kohen. If he puts the Eruv in the Beis HaPras, it will be accessible for the Kohen. That's how it is in Rashi and the Mishnah. Over here, Rashi seems to give a different explanation. Over here, Rashi seems to say that the reason why we need to have this Kohen in the Beis HaPras, that the Kohen is permitted Beis HaPras, is because that is following the opinion of Sumchas, that you have to have the potential to eat it. The person who's making the Eruv, it's not sufficient that it's fit for other people, but you have to have the potential to eat it. So that's in Rashi in our sugya. So I'm just mentioning that so we have two opinions in the Mishnah. So according to the first opinion, the Kohen is limited to putting his Eruv in a Beis HaPras, which since you have access by blowing your way through the Beis HaPras, so therefore you are permitted to put the Eruv for the Kohen is permitted to be put in a Beis HaPras. And then Shabbos, he has the potential of reaching to it. And like I said, there seems to be two reasons for that. The reason of in Rashi, the reason in Rashi the Mishnah is because access is a separate halacha, that you have to have access to the food, whether you're going to eat it or not, whether it's possible to eat or not. It's a different, but it's access you definitely have to have. Whereas in our Gemara, the Rashi says, because he holds like Sumchas, that even the Tanna Kama holds like Sumchas, that you have to have the potential of eating it. That's why you have to have the access. Anyway, but this has the opinion of Yehuda. Sorry, that's the opinion of Chacham, and therefore, but in Beis HaKvaros, which is Tomei, so then the Kohen cannot. The Beis HaPras he can access because he can check it from Tomei, but the Beis HaKvaros, which is Tomei, then you cannot put the Eruv for the Kohen in the Beis HaKvaros. So that is the opinion of the Chacham. Rabbi Yehuda, he says that the Kohen, even in Beis HaKvaros, forget about Beis HaKvaros, even in Beis HaKvaros, where he's also able to put the Eruv there. Why? So Rabbi Yehuda finds a reason because it's accessible for the for the even the basic is successful for the kohen because he's able to make chitza by putting himself in a box in the carriage, and so he puts himself in the carriage in a box. So then the bottom of the carriage or the box will be choitzets, and will be like an oil over the tumah, and it will prevent the tumah from going into the carriage, and therefore the kohen can be in the carriage and drive all the way to the where the truma is in the base hakboras. So there is access. That's what Rabbi Yehuda's argument is, and therefore you can put the Eruvin. Okay. So now we're going to the Gemara on the base. So Rabbi Yehuda after basic hakboras, you can even put the food in the base hakboras as well, not just in the base hakpras, which is the Rabbanon, Tomei, Sadasofik. You can put it in the basic hakboras. Tana, we learned that the reason is because he's able to get access within a box or etc. He's able to access the Eruv. So the Gemara says, so the fact it says that you're able to access by being in a box or a carriage or some other type of a situation like that. So kosover, that means oil zorok shmei oil. That Rabbi Yehuda says that this box which you carry the person in it's oil zorok. It's a moving oil. So it must be that it holds that moving oil is also considered oil. What's the concept of oil? The oil means it's oil underneath over the tumah. If you have an oil over the tumah, so the tumah spreads all under the oil to the entire area under the oil, but the tumah does not go through the oil. It doesn't penetrate the oil. So the area above the oil is free from tumah. The area above the oil is free from tumah. So the person in the box is free from tumah. But that's only if you consider that box which is moving, it's being moved, carried by people. So if a moving oil is considered oil zorok, oil which is moving, shmei oil. That is the reason how you're able to have access, because you're of the opinion that oil zorok is considered oil. And the Gemara says, but talk to the Tanaya, and that is something which is an argument of Tanayim. The Tanya will learn in a brisa that this concept where the moving oil is considered an oil and it's choitzes is a machlekes. If you go into Eretz Ha'amim b'shir teva mikol, now Eretz Ha'amim, chutz la'aretz, in other words, chutz la'aretz is tomei. Chutz la'aretz is tomei. That's midrabanon. Midrabanon, the entire chutz la'aretz is tomei. So he was saying that if somebody enters the area of chutz la'aretz, he is tomei. So if you went in only like you drove in with a car or something like that, with a wagon into, so it's a machlekes over here. The Rabbi says you're tomei. Why? Because he is of the opinion that the Gemara will soon say, because the moving oil is not considered oil, and therefore it's not chaitzis. It doesn't block the tumah from going above, penetrating above the floor of the wagon or box. He says it's tire, and because it and so the Mike Gemara says what the argument. Master one holds oil zorok lashmel. One says moving oil is not an oil. Master one person says oil zorok shmel. Rabbi Yehuda, he says that even a moving oil is considered an oil, and therefore the person who went in with a wagon or a box into the chutz la'aretz is not tomei. Okay, now the Gemara is going to give a brisa, which is slightly different. The scenario in the brisa is slightly different than in the Mishnah. So what kind of that one on the brisa? Rabbi says ma'arbin with kohen tohir, that you can make an eruv now for kohen tohir. So the kohen is tohir, and not only the kohen is tohir, but so a kohen tohir. The truma tahira and even truma tahira. So the food is also is tahir, because if it and the truma and the food is truma, Now, a kohen b'chlal is not allowed to become tomei. That's one thing. A kohen is not allowed to become tomei. And besides that, truma is only permitted to be eaten if it's toher. If truma is tomei, no one can eat it. Even if the kohen happens to be tomei, he also can't eat it. Is a tomei for some other reason. He cannot eat the trumat meat. Trumat meat is not permitted to be eaten. So when we have both issues are sensitive over here. The person, the kohen, the sensitivity over there that he must not become tomei, and also the truma must not become tomei. So it says ma'arbi, you can make the Eruv, the kohen toher, and the trumat meat, the kaver and the kaver. So we're not talking about basic kvaros, which is the number of kvarim, but there's one kaver. Okay, so you can put it on the kaver. You can put the what's it called? You can put the truma, which is going to be the Eruv, and the kohen. It will be sufficient for him, and he'll be able to make his center of his Shabbos residence is going to be at that kaver. I mean, not he'll actually be there, but that for concerning the distance which is able to walk. So the Gemara says, one second. Heichi also, how does he have access? He can't access the what's it called the Eruv. So how is it kosher for an Eruv? So it says b'shida teva mi. That you can access it because it can go in a box, and the box can go over the place of the. It can go over the place of the caver. The tomb of the caver will not penetrate above the box. Okay. So the Gemara says, well, but 1 second. You have the truma is toher. If you put the truma on the caver, the truma is going to become tomei. So it's not fit for eating for anybody. Well, given this, given the itmela. As soon as you put the food down on the caver, it becomes tomei. So the Gemara says, that the food is not has not become fit for tuma. Doesn't mean it's not become fit for tuma, because we know that food is only raw to be mekabel tuma if it has been touched by any of the 7 mashkim. 7 mashkim, water, milk, etc. There's 7 of them, blood, etc. So if any of these 7 mashkim touch food, then the food is able to become tumah. If no mashkim has touched the food, so if somebody has taken a fruit, an apple, and from the tree, and since he took it from the tree, there's no rain came on it, so that apple cannot become tummy. Even something tummy touched it will not become tummy. If it rained in it or whatever, and water, that's not going into the details. But so then it becomes kosher. The kids are so you have the fruit which doesn't get into, didn't touch any liquid. So loy kosher, or shenilo shebimei peres, which is the same thing. It was made with fruit juice. So, for instance, you made maybe a bread or whatever it is. Even though it's a bread, you have to put water in, right? But you can make the bread with the made peres. If you make them made peres nowadays, you make these things with made peres because one to make zaynus, whatever. But the main thing is, if you make it with made peres, that is not one of the 7 mashkim. Since made fruit juice is not one of the 7 mashkim, so if a person will make bread or cake and he won't put any water in, and the only liquid which he puts in, which he need to put in liquid, is going to be fruit juice. In that situation, it's not mekabel tuma because it didn't get any of the 7 types of mashkim, didn't touch it, didn't get wet, didn't get wet any 7 types of mashkim. So therefore, you're able to put it in a basic forest. You put it on top of the cave, it will not be mekabel tuma. Okay. So we've solved that problem. So the Gemara says, okay, the guy is now so let's say in theory, so he's able to have access. How does he have access? He'll be in a box. Okay, he'll be in a box, and the food is on the caver. How exactly do you get it from the caver to the? How do you get it from the caver to the? From the caver to inside the box? How is he going to get it? Now, if he takes a big ladle or something. So if he takes a big ladle, so if he takes a big ladle, so the ladle, it takes a ladle, let's say, and picks up the food with the ladle. So it picks up the food with the ladle, and he's inside the box. It's a nice long handle, and so it doesn't protrude outside the box. So the ladle will become tummy, and the ladle will become tummy from what? Because of the kaver. If the ladle becomes tummy because of the kaver, so the what tummy is the ladle? It's going to be an avatum, because the tummy is from a mess. So the mess is avia voisatum. So the ladle will become an avatum. Now, if the ladle becomes the avatum, even though the kohen didn't protrude his head from outside the box, the fact that he's touching that ladle because he's holding the handle. Okay, long handle. But since the ladle became an avatum, so the kohen becomes a rishon tum. So how does the kohen? How is he going to reach tongues? Let's say he takes tongues or whatever. It's the same story. That by the person's holding the tongues, he's touching the tongues become a avatum, and the person holding it become a rishon tum. So the Gemara says, he'll use pshutikla, plain pieces of wood. Now, plain piece of metal and a kabel tumah. Plain piece of wood which not be made into kelis, a piece of wood which not be made into kelis, not be made into a spoon or fork, it's a plain piece of wood. If you use that, so if he uses that to bring the stuff to him, okay, so then the tool that he's using is not a kabel tumah, so he's holding on to something which is not a kabel tumah. So that's fine. But the Gemara sort of the questions over here, yeah, so the Gemara is assuming that you have to have when you're taking a piece of wood, a board, whatever the board which you're holding to bring the food is going to be, how do you sort of get it? So you put the board under the food or something, and then you bring the board to you. Now, if the board it has in it a tefach. So what happens is, okay, the board is not mekabel tumah because the board is not mekabel tumah because it's a pshuti clay eight. It's a plain clay eight. It's just it's not made in clay. Fine. So the board is not mekabel tumah, but the board serves as an oil. So once you put the board over the space of the caver, the board is over the space. So the board over this, so anything on the underneath side of the wood, the underneath side of the board is the or plank. That's it. Plank you use, yeah. So the underneath side of the plank or the board becomes tumah because the plank or the board that itself, if it's 3 inches or above in width, just 3 inches or above in width, it's already underneath. It becomes an oil for tumah. Oil for tumah means that the board itself doesn't become tumah, but the underneath part there's tumah underneath. When a person holds that board, so part of his hand is going to be underneath that board, part above, part underneath. The part which is underneath is going to become tummy because the tumah spreads from the kaver till his fingers, which is holding it, because that's what an oil does. The entire area underneath the oil it becomes tummy. So so how exactly is he going to bring it to him? Okay, pshutikli eight, but holding the pshutikli eight is going to be a problem. It's going to make his fingers tummy, which are holding on the part of the hand, which are holding on underneath part of the plank. Will become a. So Gemara says, he's using the he's using the sharp edge. Let's see. The if he brings it with he'll use the other edge. He'll turn it on the side. So if you have a plank, he'll use the edge so he won't put the broader part of the wood to leverage up the food, but he'll put that on the sharp end will be the wider part of the plank will be going up and down and will not be over the caver. The narrow part of the plank will be over the caver. So the narrow part of the plank will be over the caver. So that then there's no tefach. There's no tefach for the tumah to make it oil to constitute it because the narrow part is less than the tefach. Obviously, the Gemara understands that the piece of wood is going to have to be a substantial piece of wood Otherwise the food will sort of drop. Yeah, you won't be able to bring the food. There has to be some strength to it. So that's why the Gemara assumed that it was it had at least 3 inches to it. And so the Gemara said he brought it by not by putting the food on the flat part, but putting the food on the sharp part, and how he managed to do that, whatever. But so therefore, it doesn't constitute an oil, and therefore there's no problem. So the kids say we managed to bring it to him, to bring it into the box. We managed to both put the food on the kaver without becoming tomei, and we managed to bring it into the box on Shabbos without becoming tomei. Right. So we've done that. So I said, "Oh, it's amazing! All this, the half of my time to Rabbanon." So why did Rabbanon disagree that the kohen cannot go on a kaver and can't put the Eruvin on a kaver? It's accessible and you're able to bring it to you. So the Gemara says, there's a different problem. The Sabi they hold also liknas bias is Surya Hanoah. You're not allowed to have a bias when you place your surah. The kaver is also banoah. The kaver at mess, all the dwarim of the mess are also banoah. You can't be a kohen a bias means to use that kohen that becomes your house for the Shabbos. You're making your house things are also banoah. You can't do that. It's also banoah. How can you make your house? Oh, so the Gemara says, Miklal. So Rabbi Yehuda is not bothered by this issue. So the Rabbi Yehuda says you can't put the Eruv there. He's not bothered by the issue, the fact you're having a noah that your house is over there, because somebody holds mutter. Miklal Rabbi Yehuda sober mutter, because someone he holds mitzvahs as the honest. So we must say that what the legitimization does a Yehuda have to matter it, because he says that mitzvahs is not considered hana. We discussed it before already, that if you make an Eruv, you make an Eruv for a mitzvah, and we'll discuss it later. Again, if you do an Eruv, you do an Eruv for the mitzvah. Since you do the Eruv for the purpose of the mitzvah, so the mitzvah is not considered hana. It's giving you the ability to do the mitzvah, and that's not considered hana. Mitzvah is not the honest. So, 1 second. So it seems that the argument over here is whether the mitzvahs are considered hana or not. Let's see what the Gemara says. So that's what Rabbi says. Mitzvah v'honesnit. Rabbi said mitzvah v'honesnit. Lema should we say ketanoyom l'shmaitze that Rabbi said something which is not everybody agrees with, because he said mitzvah is lav v'honesnit. The mitzvah is not v'honesnit, therefore it's not considered hana mitzvah. So that means it's dependent on the machlokes of Tanoim here, according to the Rabbanon is considered or not. According to Rabbanon, the Mishnah they say mitzvah is considered or not. So it's not his psak halacha of Rabbi is dependent on a machlekes. Should we say that? So the Gemara says no. Everybody agrees. Rabbi will tell you that everybody agrees with it. Everybody says mitzvah is not the So Omlach Rabbi, the Gemara says will answer you. Isveru the Eruvin el the mitzvah. Okay, so it says Rabbi will tell this. No, I'm saying this is according to all opinions. Nobody asks. Everybody agrees with me that mitzvah is lav honesty. Except there's a different argument. So Rabbi will explain the Mishnah according to his opinion. He says it's clear cut that mitzvah is lav honesty. He says the Mishnah is can you make an Eruvin even for another mitzvah? So that's the machlekes. That the Yehuda says you only do it for mitzvah, therefore mitzvah v'hodas. The Chachamim say you make an Eruv even for not for the purpose of mitzvah, you make an Eruv, and therefore it's considered hana, and you're not allowed to have an from the king. So the Gemara says, well, v'hacha mifliga. Yeah, I think maybe I didn't say that. V'hacha mifliga. Masova eim aron dam mitzvah, masova eim aron dereshus. Okay. So the Gemara says, okay, fine. But then we have another question. Rabbi Yosef, he actually passed on. He says you can only make an Eruv Dvar Mitzvah. So I trying to say that Rabbi Yosef, he said it only according to one Tana. He didn't. That the Rabbanon argue against Rabbi Yosef. That he said it not that he said it only following only the opinion of one Tana, and other Tanaim don't agree with that. So the Gemara says no. You want to change his mind. The Kul Alma Ema Arvin Elo the Magrat. Everybody will hold with what I say, which is pervasive, that says you can only use a Erev only for the purpose of mitzvah. But the Kul Alma Mitzvah of the husband, everybody agrees that the mitzvah is not considered hana. So what's the mechalikus over here? Why the Rabbanan say that there's a problem with hana here? So and Rebbe has no problem with hana. It says Ella. This is much like this. That let's not forget that one that you do only for mitzvah. That for mitzvah lava. So you can only make the erev for mitzvah and mitzvah lava. So now, so one says all he's interested is that the erev should be effective. So therefore, once Shabbos comes in, the erev is effective. He doesn't need the erev to continue being there. So therefore, if an animal will come and eat up the erev or whatever, he's not bothered. So therefore, there is no hana. There is no hana outside the mitzvah. There is a hana. Which hana? The hana of them is able to do the mitzvah. But that hana is not considered hana. And outside of the mitzvah, once the erev has become actionable, not actionable, whatever, it becomes valid for the Shabbos, once it becomes valid, he's not interested in the erev. There's no more interest. And so therefore, there's no benefit, only the erev. What I'm saying is because once the Shabbos starts, the erev disappears. It doesn't matter as long as it's there in the beginning of Shabbos. For Marsava, one says, "Nichle de minter the Isra achle." That person says, no, that person, okay, of course he main thing is the erev, but besides the erev, he also wants it to stay there. So just in case, he might eat it actually on Shabbos. So therefore, there is a side benefit. Since there's a side benefit, therefore, because there is you're not allowed to have an offer from a caver. That's the reason Chacham, but they say they can't make it a caver because they hold that the person is happy that it's there on the caver even after the Shabbos has begun, and it's being preserved there so that he can use it above what's the minimum necessity, what's necessary for the mitzvah. So therefore, it's considered hana. That's enough because you have a side benefit above the mitzvah, even though it's with a mitzvah, but there is a side benefit that is considered hana, and that's why. Okay. Ma'arvin Mishnah, Ma'arvin b'demai. You can use the erev. You can use demai. Demai we know is Gemara is going to explain soon. Demai is from Amoras, where you're not sure that some Amoratzim don't do meiser. Therefore, you're not sure if it's about to eat it, if you need to take meiser. So the demai is sofek, and you need to take the meiser again before you eat it. You have to take meiser again before you eat it. Nevertheless, you use it for an erev. Even if you haven't yet taken the meiser. The meiser rishon shenotel tremasa. The Gemara is going to explain later why all these things are mentioned in the Mishnah. Meiser rishon shenotel tremasa. If you have meiser rishon, you can also use meiser rishon. You can also use for an erev as long as you've taken the truma, because a tenth of the meiser rishon has to be separated for truma to give to the kohen. So once you've done that, then the Levi etc. can eat it, and it's not tevel anymore. If you didn't take the truma off, then it's still tevel, so nobody can eat it. So once you're taking off the truma, the tenth of it, then it's not tevel, and therefore you can eat it. So therefore, it's fit for what's it called, for erev. Ma'aser sheni v'hegdesh nivdo, ma'aser sheni or hegdesh, which has been redeemed. So they don't have the kedusha of the ma'aser sheni or the hegdesh anymore. So you can use that for an erev as well. The kohen b'chala the truma, the kohen can use chala and truma. Avol le'be tevel, you cannot use tevel. Tevel is not edible. You can't. You have to be first mafresh truma. And we can't be mafresh truma on Shabbos. The Rabbanan, can't be mafresh truma. This is the Rabbanan Shavuos. The loy b'ma'aser rishon not truma. Similarly, also you cannot use for the erev ma'aser rishon should not take the tenth off because again it's tenth. Also, the lav ma'aser sheni v'hegdesh. Of course, you can't also use ma'aser sheni the hegdesh which have not been redeemed because it's ma'aser sheni. Ma'aser sheni you have to eat only in Yerushalayim. You can't eat outside Yerushalayim, and inside Yerushalayim you don't need erev. The hegdish lenivdu, and also hegdish who's not been redeemed, so it's hegdish. It belongs to Mesa English. You can't be male. You can't use it. Okay, we'll just do the first one. which is the first part of the Mishnah, which the Gemara is going to be here. The Mai, Gemara says, the Mai, how can you make Meiser Mai? Well, the Chazale, you can't eat Mai, you have to take Meiser again. And you can't take Meiser on Shabbos because Shabbos can't take Meiser because, because of Chacham, yeah. So the Gemara says, Migi di boy mafkelu, there's a potential for him to eat. Okay, the player he can't eat it, but there's a potential he is able to eat it. Why? Because the din is, we'll soon see that the din is that an oni is permitted to eat mine. The person is poor, then the chomer goes. Why? Because most people are a mafresh demaises, so therefore demai is a bidin Torah, demai is mutter. Because they go Papa Roiv, and therefore the Chachamim said the Anoni they want Machmer. They should take again the Meiser. So therefore this is a person not an Ani, but nevertheless, the boy he's able to Machmer the Chassid, have it on, become an Ani. The Chazal then he'll be able to fit it. So therefore Hashanami Chazal, since he has the potential of being able to eat it, so therefore also now it's fit for him to use as an Erev. This now we'll learn in the Mishnah. Machil Sanim Timai. Sanya means the soldiers who are billeted in your house, and you have to take care of them. So you can give them to eat. You can give them to eat the mine. So the soldiers who are billeted in the private houses, and also the poor people have to eat. Omar Avona says, Tana will in the Brisa B'Shama Emrim Eimachel Zedid in Ma'il B'Sil Emrim Machil Zedid. That's a name to there's a machlekes that according to Shama you cannot give the poor people to Maya, and according to Basil you are able to give, you are able to permit it to give poor people to Maya.